We have an innate need to belong. And we are people choose brands that they're passionate about. So, cyclists love Rapha.
Yes.
Crafters love Hobbycraft. Skaters love Dickies and Vans. And so that they all have the potential to harness that kind of passion and draw people in and create something more around the brand than just loyalty and points and membership.
Hi, and welcome to Loyalty Stories, Antavo's podcast on customer loyalty and loyalty programs. I'm Michelle Ellicott-Taylor. I head up the global partnership team at Antavo. And at Antavo, we are a vendor that powers loyalty programs all over the world. We help various great businesses, including fashion companies, retailers, food and beverage, all sorts of different brands working with us. In this podcast, Loyalty Stories, we dive into the trends around customer loyalty, and we get to speak to some experts in this field to pick their brains and learn what's next in the digital world with loyalty programs. Today's guest is Steve, who is co-founder at Biglight, a digital agency helping brands to grow by creating digital experiences that their customers will love. So Steve, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Nice to virtually meet you, Michelle.
It's great to meet you too. And it'd be brilliant if you could just give our listeners and watchers a little bit of a background on yourself and your company.
Yes. So as you said, we work with we help brands grow by creating digital experiences that meet the needs and expectations of their customers. We've been doing this for quite a while now. Actually, our first client, our claim to fame, if you like, was we helped Burberry create their first direct-to-consumer channels back in Europe anyway, back in 2006. So we've been involved in premium brands, luxury brands ever since. So in the early stages, it was helping brands get up and running, of course, with direct-to-consumer channels. But as time has gone on, it's about constantly understanding the ever-changing needs of customers who themselves change, to understand to make sure that the experiences that brands provide meet those needs to drive revenue growth. And so loyalty is obviously a part of that.
That's great to get that insight. And obviously, you're working with some really exciting brands across the years. So it'd be good to hear some more about those later on. But just from a wider spectrum, not necessarily a brand that you've worked on, but what's an example of a brand that you see doing it really well in regards to their loyalty program?
Well, I'm going to talk in a bit about Adidas, actually, which is one of our clients that we've been involved in a moment. But also, I think another brand that is, I'm going to talk about our brands, but they're not necessarily things that we've been directly involved with. But I find it very interesting when brands, the whole point of brands going direct to consumer in the first place back in 2006 and beyond was there were kind of three motivations. There was a desire to get closer to their customers. There was a desire to control the end-to-end customer experience, and there was, of course, a desire to have the margin that was otherwise go to wholesale partners. So, in a sense, we've always been involved in loyalty from the very beginning because we're trying to attract customers and retain them. What I think has been interesting, the programs that I admire are the programs that go beyond the traditional mechanisms of e-commerce, which is encouraging customers to create an account, encouraging them then to subscribe to email, to that next level of loyalty membership. So there are lots of good examples out there. Most of our clients have a really great scheme of some description. So Rapha do. Hobbycraft have one, and the North Face, and we've been particularly involved in the creation of the Adidas one. So it's all around this, not just trying to encourage this anonymous customer back and trying to convert them, but trying to then understand who the customer is, understand their behaviors, and respond to them.
Excellent. Okay, so are you able to share a little bit more about one of those programs that you've worked on?
Yeah, so I mean, the one that we've been the most proud to work on has been Club, actually, which is I would put it down as one of the best, most inclusive, broadest loyalty programs. I think the three levels really. You've got loyalty, you've got membership, and then you've got community. In a sense, the program was always conceived as a community first a proposition with membership and loyalty embedded within it. And what I think was interesting and that we're very proud of, certainly can't say too much about what went on, because obviously for confidentiality reasons. But what I can say is that one of the really important things to the brand and the talented people there was to make sure that whatever proposition was created actually met the needs and expectations of customers and understood how customers thought and responded to each of the elements. And I think it's a sign of where something like loyalty, which is almost considered to be a very logical thing, is actually fundamentally a very emotional thing. So there are lots of practical considerations, but the thing that makes a loyalty or membership or community scheme succeed or fail is an alignment with the emotional needs of customers. And so throughout that process of creating that program, along every step of the way, what it should be called and why it existed, and therefore why you should engage with it. The different aspects of what is a level and what you get for different levels, how points are acquired, and how rewards are organized. Every single step of the way was iterated and validated to make sure it made sense to people at an emotional as well as a practical level. And so what you end up with is something that's really quite well-rounded and achieves that difficult balance, if you like, between the fact that people engage with brands because they have values that share, or they perceive that the values are shared so that's from the point of view of a customer. But from a brand point of view, the brand obviously wants to reward behaviors that maximize its performance. So it's that balance between those two things, and I think in that program it's been achieved very well.
Yeah, I think actually they've been referenced a couple of times in our research, so it's a big impact with Adidas and Ellicott.
Yeah, so that's been great, and I think we've all learned a lot from it. And so when we look at other schemes, we evolve our thinking on that.
Yeah, okay. You mentioned a couple of interesting things there, like the emotional side of things and communities. And I wanted to ask you, what do you see as key changes that have happened over the last 12 to 18 months in regard to the loyalty industry?
Oh, well, interestingly, I think if we were talking about loyalties, I'm not going to make it a pandemic thing, but a few years ago, it's not necessarily a pandemic thing.
Yeah.
From a consumer perspective, from a customer perspective, it meant discounts pretty much largely, and so you have this dilemma. On one hand, you have brands that operate loyalty schemes with very large assortments and very high visit frequency, which means it's like a supermarket or your ASOS or whatever, where people are coming often and having their needs satisfied by the brands. And therefore, the loyalty scheme was a way of just rewarding that purchase behavior, and typically by providing discounts or lower prices. I think what's changed is on two levels. One is a proliferation of the sort of benefits that a loyalty scheme can provide. So things like premium access to content or access to a specific product or experiences and those sorts of things. At the same time, a change in perception of customers that they are valuable things to achieve. So in a way, it means that a brand that has infrequent interaction with its customers. So I've got the North Face jumper on now by coincidence. It's every now and again that the brand is engaging, that the customers are engaging with the brand. Typically, it's seasonal. But the provision of this shift in the sorts of benefits that are interesting to customers means that it's genuinely acceptable to have an ongoing relationship with the brand. Whereas before it would be seasonal. You'd pop it, and that comes back to an alignment of what people are into and the sort of thing that the brand supports. So for me, it's that shift from just about discounts to it's actually about engagement with the brand, and in particular brands that people are passionate about.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's been one of the key topics actually looking at. It's moving, not to say it's moving away from earn and burn, and point systems, but that still works very well for a lot of brands. But what's this other emotional link in the value exchange between the customer and the brand, and how is that linked to other things out and that emotional loyalty outside of the pure point system?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then bearing that in mind, what do you see as some trends that are coming? Again, maybe in the next year or 24 months. Is there something like one or two things that you see as key trends in the loyalty industry moving forward?
Yes, I think there definitely the one that we are working on a lot at the moment is unlocking the potential of loyalty and membership within the luxury sector. And it's a strange thing in a way. And I'm not talking about your Net-a-Porters or your Matches, because they obviously do those things well. But going back to my earlier point, that's because of the visit frequency and the fact that they have a large assortment. But from a luxury brand that's gone direct to consumer, with low frequency of purchase, low conversion rates, all that sort of thing. Some things. There are some trends in the way that their clients, the customers' clients, clients interact with them, which means that there's been a gradual rise in the use of Google Shopping, and that's accelerated to some extent post-pandemic. Whether it's related to the pandemic, I don't know, but since then it has. So more use of Google Shopping, more investment in Google Shopping, which means that the brand experience is relegated to Google Shopping onto a product details page through guest checkout, supported by typically Apple Pay. So we have this scenario where luxury customers really value personalized premium experiences, but are behaving in ways that make them almost impossible for brands to deliver, because they don't leave any digital footprint, if you like. They do it payment and shipping, but they're not known to the brand during that experience. So there are a few answers to that. Some are harder to imagine working. Apps is one. The luxury customer is very time poor, always in a hurry. The idea of them downloading an app, we've all got to use an app we haven't used for a while, and it says, "Oh, you've got to update it." This is It just sort of either everyone's got to have an app, or one of the other solutions is actually reimagining membership and loyalty. We don't call it membership, loyalty, or community. We call it client privilege. The idea that they can provide exclusive access to the brand that allows them to unlock that visibility that brands need to be able to provide those personalized experiences, differentiated services based on client behavior, omnichannel experiences, and whatever. So I absolutely think over the next 6 months or year or so, we'll be doing a lot of work in that area, and that reimagining requires a change in language, but also a change when you think about things like how points. So you mentioned that phrase, earn and burn. That's like a million miles away from what we're talking about here. But that point that people engage with brands for a reason, and therefore giving people that access to the brands, rather than Google Shopping and bounce, whatever. So that's the first trend, and the second one is community, actually. And if you like, there's three, to my mind, there's three levels: there's loyalty, membership, and community. And lots of the brands I mentioned earlier on, that have successful membership and loyalty schemes. So there is an opportunity to go further and develop those into much stronger communities, and that's down to the fact that we have an innate need to belong, and we are people choose brands that they're passionate about. So cyclists love Rapha,
Yes,
crafters love Hobbycraft, skaters love Dickies and Vans, and so that they all have the potential to harness that kind of passion and draw people in and create something more around the brand than just loyalty and points and membership.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say with like loyalty, membership, and community, like almost three levels within it, because there's some views that loyalty is all-encompassing this, but actually loyalty is membership. So it is your membership programs that are helping to create that loyalty with your customers, and then that membership is part of a community. So it's all these things linking together under the loyalty umbrella.
What I like about it is
so are you talking with brands about when they're looking at their strategy and they're looking at where they want to go to with the next steps? Obviously, there's the concept side of that, but there's the actual fulfillment and thinking about the platforms that the brand or yourselves are going to be working with. And what's kind of front of mind for you there? Like, are people thinking about, say, how easy it is to integrate, to implement, how customizable it is? Has it got gamification? Like, what are the things around the actual platform itself that can help, and that are front of mind for loyalty?
I think most of the things you've said, gamification, not yet, I suppose, but certainly the ability to one of the most appealing things I think about because in a sense the starting point of any program is to do away with registration and subscription and bundle those up into one thing called membership, and buy because traditionally, of course, registration has been a function of a purchase during the purchase process, and then subscription has been an option at the end. Is sort of reversing that and saying, well, actually, do you want to engage with this brand at the membership level? And by doing that, you are subscribing. So I think one of the appealing things about loyalty in particular is that the fundamental components are quite I would say simple, but they're easy for people to understand, and their technology is fairly proven. There's not kind of anything there that's dramatically new, and also the fact that a lot of our clients will be on something like Salesforce or equivalent platforms where the implementation is a relatively simple cartridge that will be able to be implemented, obviously with some changes to my account and other things like that. So at the fundamental level, I think that simplicity and core functionality of those elements, that we've mentioned, level tiers, points, rewards, and then and for me, certainly when we think about start to think about luxury, is also controls. How do we? One of the things that's really important to clients as customers and luxury customers is a feeling that they are in control, and in particular things like email preferences. So I think a technology needs to be easy to implement and handle all of those things well. And I think this is a journey, isn't it? I mean, just creating and design the magic, and certainly the experience from an Adidas point of view is sort of taught us that the magic of it isn't really the underlying technology in that respect at the early stages. It's that understanding of the psychology of why customers want to engage with brands, and structuring and designing a program that meets customers' needs and expectations. So I think, and it's a journey too. So I'm sure lots and lots of other things will be required, but the fundamentals are that simplicity, that clear structure, and the easy to implement and to then evolve.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting points you've raised there, and even like using the word like journey, because obviously, loyalty isn't something that, it's not a program you're going to put in, have for 3 months and that's it. It's what are you doing in this 12 months and the next 24 and so on and so on. And you need the platform to be evolving to support all of those new ideas.
I mean, it's interesting when you get into things like doing deals with third-party brands to share benefits and all that sort of, that's way down the track, isn't it? So there's almost a never-ending list of things, because apart from anything else, people's expectations will change too.
They
will.
Not
going to stop.
Yeah, and I think as well, something you just said about the partnerships and collaborations, that's changing. And in that loyalty space, people are looking at that wider group that they can be working with. So it isn't just about the brand, it's who else is the brand associated with, and how do they have their touch points with the end customer.
Yes, and particularly as the trend is towards experiences and away from just points and prizes or whatever you might call them.
Yeah. It's definitely moving in that direction. So with the kind of assignments that you're working on, is it driven purely from a loyalty team? Are you seeing that it sits within marketing teams, or is there more, I guess, buy-in now for these types of programs from a wider team at the exec level? Like, what are you seeing there with who has these types of assignments?
Well, well, it's a wider team certainly now, and in a way, people aren't entering into loyalty schemes in order to have a loyalty scheme. It's more, how do we create the engagement with the customers who are passionate about our brand in a new way that meets their needs, but also allows us to meet their needs at another level. So I go back to luxury, unless the brand can sit back and say, well, look, all of the trends are in the wrong direction. Google shopping's going up, massive levels of bounce from product details page, lots of anonymous interactions. Yet, like for a really good example is we want to provide really joined up omnichannel experiences. Well, how can you do that if the customer walks into store and you have no clue who they are or what they've been doing? So in a way, it's not just about loyalty; it's actually about customer engagement at a fundamental level. But that also means that, if you take those sorts of brands, it's not something you can enter into lightly either. The scheme has to be really well designed, and it has an impact in almost every area of the business. At a simple level, brands typically already have a VIC program, a VIP program for this. So they're already doing this, but it's based on a little, black book, and it's a very small proportion of their clients who get it. And they also have a well-established CRM program in most cases. So it's about filling in the pyramid in between those two things. But it has an impact on retail operations. It has an impact on brand. It has an impact all right across the business. So any loyalty or membership scheme that doesn't take into account all those areas of the business is unlikely to be that successful.
Yeah, and I guess some of the brands you've mentioned already are now linking that with different areas of the business. What's your experience like with understanding how, say, your location or your region can dictate the types of loyalty programs that work? Like, just because something is working for Adi Club in the US, is that the same response in APAC, or do they look differently? So do you see commonalities across regions, or is it more that there's changes in what makes people respond to a loyalty program?
Most of our work is in US and across EMEA. So I don't know about Asia and whatever. I imagine it's different. It sounds different. But from our perspective, not talking specifically about Adi Club, but kind of referencing it. I would say for most of the brands we work with, we are looking at the proposition is universal. Okay. So what we pretty much everything that we do, we are looking at the response in Europe and the response in the US, and over the years, actually, we've done a lot of work looking at customer response to a whole bunch of things, the fundamental site and redesign changes and everything. And we don't really see much of a difference between the different areas. You do say in Germany, there's a much more of a focus on returns, for example. Between the UK and the US, not really. There's more commonality really between people in any of those regions with the same need state or specific in their situation than there is between people from different countries, if you know what I mean. So the challenge is more in designing these sorts of programs, making sure that they are universally understood. Because if you look at something like luxury, it is just global by default, and customers are naturally international by default. So there's really no opportunity to silo the scheme at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. And obviously then that's that particular vertical, like luxury as a vertical versus, there would be a difference maybe in something that is CPG related or...
Yes, definitely. I mean, in a sense, premium brands, if I would classify, Adidas or the North Face equally, the proposition is typically universal.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much. It's been really exciting talking with you. I've got one last question before we have to wrap up. So is there something that, in the loyalty space has surprised you? And that could be surprise and delight, or surprise that you didn't expect that to be necessarily associated to loyalty, or something that would work.
Well, I mean, I thought about this question. I thought you might ask it. And actually, what has surprised me is not what has been done, but more what hasn't been done. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm more. I'm surprised brands aren't pushing harder to create the sort of to move from loyalty through to community, because and I don't know if it's driven by the fact that it does require such a big it's such an engagement from all around the business. But I see we started this year thinking particularly in premium and luxury, there's so much opportunity in loyalty, yet the pace of movement has been up until now quite slow, and that some of the metrics are quite scary when you look at them. If I go back to the point I made, where brands went direct to consumer way back in the day of Burberry, 2006, what we were talking about is those three things. Getting closer to the customer to understand the customer is the first. Secondly, controlling that end-to-end customer experience, and thirdly, benefiting from the retail margin. What's happened over the last 2 or 3 years is those two first elements, getting to know your customer and controlling the end-to-end experience, have gradually been eroded, so that all you're left with is, we're making a bit more money, but we're still retail. So if you look on some brands, they're still pushing as hard on Google Shopping as their wholesale customers.
Yeah.
And so that magic link, that thing, that the fundamental reason that people engage with brands in the first place, if we don't recognize that by creating, as we said, loyalty, membership communities around those brands, then we're missing something. So I think that's the thing that I would say.
Oh, that's really interesting. So thank you very much, for sharing that. And thanks so much again for joining us today on Loyalty Stories. And we really appreciate your time.
All right. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone. That's a wrap. Thank you very much for joining our session and either listening or watching this. And wherever you're doing that, please give us a like if you can. And come and visit us at antavo.com to hear more about how we can support your loyalty programs. Thanks very much.